So, hello, Des. It's good to have you here today, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. We're going to focus today's conversation on building trust as a leader. And I'd really like to understand from your perspective, I guess, the importance of that within the context of improvement and our improvement efforts.
Right. Well, I think in any business today, any organization today, particularly with the rate of change that we have in the world today, uh, in a world that's changing quite so dramatically, trust actually forms the real foundation of a healthy organization. Because without having trust, that's both between the leaders and the people working in the organization, you can't expect feedback to to emerge. Therefore, the leaders never get to hear the truths about things uh, because people are there's no trust. They probably don't have security. Therefore, the creativity is not there. Um, the organization can't adapt to the changing world around it as effectively as it should do. And the problem is, I guess, is that trust is one of those invisible forces that if you just think about it, just think about trust. It's omnipresent. It's in our personal lives, it's in our professional lives, and it's in our organizational lives. But if we just take it from an organization perspective, trust, as I say, is that foundation of effective leadership, and it's the first step that you must establish if you're going to allow your organization to respond and grow to the environment it's in, or just simply to have continual improvement.
Yes, because by its very nature, improvement requires us to be willing to try things, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Trust is what allows people to engage with change, to be willing to take risks, and uh, to even to a point follow people who have got a vision that may not be entirely clear. But if you trust the leaders, you know they've got your backs, then people are more likely to follow. They're more likely to get engaged and contribute. And to be honest with you, without trust, you can have the best technology, whether it's AI or automation, or just the best strategy, or the best leaders with the best brains. Without trust, you'll struggle to gain any traction on any change or any transformation because people will be resistant to it.
So, we find ourselves in leadership positions, and what do what are the behaviours that we're looking for from leaders? Because you can't just stand up and say, "Trust me," can you? That's not enough. I know that sounds obvious, but
Well, trust me, I'm a doctor is a good line, isn't it? But trust at its core is a belief. It's a belief that an individual has. It's a belief that's born from the confidence that someone or something will act with honesty, integrity, competence, care, and value. Um, Trust is also, I think, we got to recognise is it's not bestowed upon people. I don't think it's something that has to grow. That on reflection, it's something that has to grow. It's very fragile. It's built over time, drop by drop. Um, and I think we all know that you can work really hard to build trust, but you can lose all that trust easily. It's built drop by drop, but can be lost in a tsunami. And leadership is not about having trust given to you because of your status or even demanding trust because of your background or whatever. It's really about earning it and about working with the people around you to give them the security to trust you.
and what do you think are the components of behaviours that make up trust as?
Well, it's an interesting thing, this, and we've been looking at this for quite some time. But I like the one thing there's one piece of work I do like, and I actually use quite a lot now. And it's some work which was done by um, David Mater, Charlie Green, and Robert Galford in their book, The Trusted Advisor. And they talk about the trust equation. And I think that's really quite useful, and it's a great little story to have. And for me, I found this. You'll listen to Charles Green's videos, and he'll say is a model, hopefully a useful model. And we have that same statement where we are, don't we, Suze? Where all models are wrong, but some are useful. Where we stole the Charles Box thing. So this I find is a
Yes.
model that's really useful. So the trust equation is about being trustworthy and having trust. So it's about that. And if you like, you get TQ, which is a trust quotient, almost like you have EQ, if you like. And the elements behind that are it's a very simple equation where you have a numerator and a denominator. So hopefully that means something. But the stuff that goes above the line, if you like, are going to be things like
Yeah.
credibility, reliability, and something called intimacy. And if you were to add those together, if you could score them and give one 10, the other 10, the other 10, you'd have 30. And they are undermined by what is the denominator. And the denominator from the trusted advisor equation is something they refer to as self orientation, where the people are in it for themselves. And I found it to be a really compelling little model to work on. So if I'm ever trying to build trust with people, I can actually check my behaviors against that little model. And because trust is such an important thing, certainly in our work, is that people will not work with us if they don't trust us. Trust is the very, very foundation of our work. Therefore, I find this model really useful.
And the self-orientation is an interesting factor, isn't it? Because it it's about just how much the individual is naturally concerned about how they come across, as opposed to how much, let's say, others in the
Oh, yeah,
organization are successful.
yeah, self-orientation. It is. If you think about this denominator, if it's going to be high, you know people who I guess most people listening to this will have a good sense. You can't put a score on it. I've never worked out how you can score self-interest, to be honest with you, but I just know when I'm in a room with someone who cares about what I and the team are doing and is not in it for themselves. So their self-interest, if you like, is low. They're more interested in the other person, they're interested in the team, they're interested in the organization and its benefits. Whereas a self-interested person is one that comes in, they're more worried about whether they look stupid. Is my next contribution to this meeting going to make me look clever? Um, you get a sense that they only care about themselves and don't really care too much about other people. So you can judge these things really very, very easy. So one of the things that a leader really, really has to be aware of is that very nature of self orientation. Is it me, 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 or is it you? And I think when that comes across, now that has to be authentic. It can't be false. It can't be acted. It has to have integrity and authenticity. And that's a skill that some people simply don't have, but it is one you can enhance and improve, I believe.
Yes, I was going to say, because there's something about you talked at the beginning about the environment in which people are working, but there's the environment in which leaders are leading. So if the leaders with whom I work are willing to do an intervention with me, if you like, and say, Susannah, I don't think I think that you're not giving them the benefit of the doubt, or I think that you're making some assumptions without data, would be a good set of words that might be used. That's really important for me, because that will pick me up, and I'm willing to think again about, okay, so how do I approach this better? But if I haven't got anyone who is is willing to do that intervention with me, it's very difficult for me to even be aware of the impact of what I might be saying.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing. This self-awareness, for me, self-awareness, which is going to be the subject of a later podcast, I think, is going to be really crucial. All leaders need to be self-aware, and you can, in a trusting environment, you you can allow people to make observations about how you're coming across. So, if you like, you can allow them to explain how they see you. And if you're willing enough and you are of sufficiently low self orientation, you may take on board what that is, and therefore you probably would improve your position in that sense. So that self awareness is going to be really important. Right. Yep.
Okay, so we talked about self-orientation. So let's talk a bit more about the credibility, reliability, and intimacy.
Yeah. I mean, right. So credibility and reliability are things which are relatively easy to measure. You can measure those. Intimacy, well, slightly tricky. But if we just take the component that is credibility for now, this is really about. I mean, it's a very rational component. It's whether the person is competent or capable in what they do. That, if you like, they got the relevant credentials, and that could just be experience. It might be education. Um, they know stuff. They know what they know, but actually, I think also what's really important is they know what they don't know, and they admit it. They admit that they don't know it, and I think that's it's quite good. So it's mainly they're mainly cognitive traits. There's some emotional background in credibility, um, in the sense that when you are expressing your capability or what you know, that the person with you has confidence in what you're saying. There's a sense of belief, truth, as I say, integrity with what you're saying. So there's some words and ideas based in that. But that's the important thing. So credibility is one of those things. And you can work on that. Your credibility can be enhanced over time. Reliability is actually really very simply. It's really how we show up. It's what we do. It's things like, if we say we're going to be there on at this time, we're there. If we say we're going to do this, we do it. If we say you can tell me this, I won't tell anybody, you don't tell anybody. And I think that's the sort of thing about reliability. And you could score those from 0 to 10. The other one, which is intimacy, on this one. Now, this isn't cuddly type intimacy. It's about emotional security when people are dealing with us, and the type of components that the trusted advisor might suggest are going to be things like empathy, vulnerability, emotional intelligence. They're additional features which can add to your credibility and your reliability, but they're very subtly different. It's almost about um, how, when you sit down with someone, and you're about to say something, do you go through a little computation first that says, "Oh, should I say this, or is it risky?" So if you like, this intimacy is about having a, a really credible emotional risk factor, if you like. So it's low. You know where you are with that person. Now, if you could get 10, 10, and 10, you got 30, right? And what you want to do is, you don't. If you get a TQ, a trusting quotient of 30, that'd be absolutely fantastic. But unfortunately, we've got that
Yes.
denominator, which is self-interest, which straight away starts taking big chunks out of it. So if you're incredibly um, self-orientated at a 10, shall we say, well, straight away your TQ quotient is down to 3. If you're down at 1, then, well, you're at 30. And so you can see how it works. And I think that's why that equation for me is such a valuable little equation.
It is, yeah, I really like that, Des, because I think that for me, there's a point about people. maybe unconsciously using that without any knowledge of it, but it's what's emotionally going on for them when they look at leaders. And actually, the useful part of it is that I consciously, as a leader, have it in mind and say, how do I fit in this? And that's a good way of self-measuring in order to be more confident that I'm able to build trust.
Yeah, and I think for me the very simple thing is that it allows you to sit down and say, in this circumstance, what I allowed to happen here, I allowed my self interest to get in the way. That's what happened there, and you practice these things, and if you can understand the components that will build up trust, you can understand credibility and how you can grow it. You can understand reliability and how you can grow it. You understand intimacy and how you can expand it and make it secure, and you understand self-interest and the components of it and how you can with security reduce it, then you've got all of the components in place to become the very best you that you can be, so that the best you shows up when you're doing an engagement with a client, or when you are leading a team meeting, or when you are about to sit down in a board meeting in a stressful situation. And these are components that once you've learnt them, they almost regulate the way that you think and your responses. And for me, it's a really valuable one. So I didn't know. I don't know whether Maester Green and Galford, when they created that, realised what a profound little calculation they've got. But for me, I carry it pretty much everywhere I go.
That's a really great model, and I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sus. Look forward to talking again.